Okay. So this is the question. A lender wants to enter into a 6 by 3 FRA. So first of all, 6 by 3 FRA basically means after 6 months for 3 months. So whenever we want to calculate the forward rate, we will calculate it as the rate which will prevail after 6 months for 3 months. Okay. So they have given us the spot rate today for 6 months. They have given us the spot rate today for 9 months. Okay. After 6 months, the market reference rate is 9%. So after 6 months, which is basically at the end of the FRA period, the market reference rate is 9%. This is basically the floating rate. Okay, we have to calculate the fixed rate. This question basically has three parts to it. Part number one, whether the lender will buy the FRA or will he sell the FRA. So this is very simple. The first part is very simple. Like the lender is worried whenever you are lending money, your main worry is that interest rates will fall. Correct. As a lender, when I'm lending money, my main worry is that, okay, in future, when I go to lend money, the interest rates fall at that point of time, and therefore I receive lesser income. So, as a lender, my main fear is that interest rates will fall, and therefore I will short the FRA. A lender will always sell the FRA, like we have seen in our examples also. A lender will always sell the FRA, which means that a lender will want to be someone who receives the fixed rate. Okay. He will be the person who receives the fixed rate and pays the floating rate. Okay, because I am worried that the interest rates will fall. I want to receive a higher interest rate. I want to receive a fixed interest rate. Okay, I want to protect myself against the risk that interest rates fall. So as a lender, I will be someone who is the fixed rate receiver, or on the other hand, I can say I will pay the floating rate. Okay, so part 1 is solved. The lender will short the FRA. Okay, the lender will receive the fixed rate, he will pay the floating rate. Okay, part number 2 of the question is, what is the fixed rate of the FRA? Now this is very simple. For part 2, we basically have to solve it using the forward rates, spot rates and forward rates, something which we have already seen. So this is basically 1 plus spot rate for 9 months should be equal to 1 plus spot rate for 6 months multiplied by 1 plus forward rate after 6 months for 3 months. I can write the equation like this. Okay. So now we have to calculate. Remember that the rates are always annualized. They don't need to specify in the question that the rates are annualized. By default, whatever rates are given to you in the question, they are always annualized rates. So here you will have to obviously adjust for the periodicity. So 1 plus 7% into 9 by 12 is equal to 1 plus the spot rate for 6 months is 5%. This is also annualized. You will have to adjust for periodicity. So this is into 6 by 12 multiplied by 1 plus whatever forward rate you get after 6 months for 3 months. And this forward rate also you will have to adjust into 3 by 12. And now if you look at the equation, if you look at the left hand side of the equation and the right hand side of the equation, the periods will always match. So this is 9 by 12, this is 6 by 12, and this is 3 by 12. So on the left hand side also, you are talking about a 9-month period in total. And on the right hand side also, in total, you are talking about a 9-month period only. The spot rate is for 6 months, the forward rate is for 3 months. Okay, on solving this equation, what is the forward rate after 6 months for 3 months? If you solve the equation, the forward rate after 6 months for 3 months comes to, so you basically get 10.73%. This is the fixed rate of your FRA. So this is part 2. The fixed rate of the FRA is 10.73%. Okay, so even if the question is not explicitly asking you to calculate the fixed rate of the FRA, you will definitely need the fixed rate of the FRA to calculate the net settlement amount, right? It is not possible to calculate the net settlement amount without knowing the fixed rate and the floating rate. So the floating rate you have been given in the question as 9%. The fixed rate we have calculated as 10.73%. Okay, so let's calculate the net settlement amount. So whenever you have to calculate the net settlement amount, unless you are like super comfortable, always draw the timeline. If you have reached a point where you are very comfortable, well and good. So this is 6 months, this is T0. Your settlement will happen over here. And then after your FRA is over, this is the 6 months of the FRA period. After your 6 months of FRA is over, then your loan will start, which will be for 3 months. Okay, after 6 months for 3 months, right? So this 3 months will be your loan period. And this is T 9 months. Okay. So in terms of settlement, you will always talk about the difference between the fixed leg and the floating leg. So the fixed leg was 10.73%, the floating leg was 9%. So see, the floating leg of 9% you will come to know only after 6 months. When you are standing at time 6 months, over here only you will come to know what is the floating rate, which was 9%, right? This 9% you will not know over here. At time 0, you will not come to know that the floating rate was 9%. It is given to us in the question, but in real life, you will come to know what is this rate only when you reach T6. Okay, before that, you will not come to know what is the floating rate. But the fixed rate of 10.73% will get calculated over here only. At time 0 itself, you will know that the fixed rate of the FRA is 10.73%. Okay, now this is for the whole year. This interest rate is for the whole year. Your loan is just for 3 months. So you need to first adjust for periodicity. Your loan is just for 3 months. So into 3 by 12 multiplied by the notional principal. The notional principal has been given to you at $1 million. Okay, so this is basically the entire payment which will happen. Now be very careful. Here is the point where a lot of students miss out. This interest savings will happen at the end of the loan period, right? At T6, you will go, you will take a fresh loan and you will pay interest on the loan after 3 months. Today only you will take a loan and today only you will pay the interest on the loan. It does not happen like that, right? If you are taking a loan today, you will not pay the interest right now. First, use the funds, right? So you will have to pay your interest after 3 months. After the loan period ends, that is when you will actually pay the interest. So your interest savings will happen at T9 months. This is where your interest savings will happen. Okay, and the settlement of the FRA will happen at T6 months. So at T9 months, my interest savings will happen, which is basically the difference between the fixed rate and the floating rate. That actual interest savings will happen after 3 months, but the settlement of the FRA is happening today. So this interest savings needs to be discounted back to the settlement date, which means that we need to discount it back for 3 months. And what is the discount rate? The discount rate, remember, is your market reference rate, which is 9%. So you need to discount this interest savings back by 3 months at the rate of 9%. So this is your numerator. This is your overall interest savings or interest cost, whatever it is. Okay. The difference is your net settlement, which will happen. But this interest payment, this interest savings, whatever it is, it will happen after 3 months. The settlement of the FRA is happening today. So this time difference is there, which again you need to adjust. So you need to discount it back at the rate of 9%. 9% is for the entire year. You need to discount it back just for 3 months, which is basically the duration of the loan. So this is your settlement amount. So if you calculate, what does the settlement amount come to? It basically comes to 4229.83, and if you want you can round it off to $4230. This is the settlement amount. Now who will pay this settlement amount? Will the settlement amount be paid by the lender or by the borrower? Very simply put, this is very, very simple to understand. Your fixed rate was how much? 10.73%. Correct? Your fixed rate was 10.73%. Your floating rate turned out to be 9%. Okay, so the fixed rate payer will pay 10.73%. The floating rate payer will pay 9%. Okay, so on a net level, who is going to make the payment? On a net level, this payment, which is the net settlement, this is being made by the fixed rate payer. Okay, so yes, did it make sense in retrospect for the lender to enter into the FRA? Yes, because he entered into the FRA, he is going to receive 10.73%. If he had not entered into the FRA, he would receive the floating rate, which would have been 9%. He was worried that interest rates would fall in the future, and his worry in retrospect was justified. Interest rates actually did fall to 9%. And because he had locked himself in the FRA to receive a fixed rate of 10.73%, he is receiving 10.73%, which is higher than the market reference rate. Okay, so the lender will receive this amount. The lender receives the settlement amount. And the borrower will end up paying the net settlement amount. So the lender will receive $4230, and the borrower, which is basically the person who had long the FRA, right? The person who has purchased the FRA, that person will end up paying $4230. The person who had short the FRA, which is basically our lender was someone who had short the FRA. He will receive the net settlement amount of $4230. Okay, so the lender is actually gaining in our example. So this is your forward rate agreement. This is how you calculate the net settlement amount. This example is very, very exhaustive because it covers whether you should buy or sell an FRA. That understanding is covered over here. Then the understanding of how to calculate the fixed rate of the FRA, that is also covered over here. And then obviously how to calculate the settlement amount of the FRA, that is also covered over here. In your CFA level 1, for the FRA kind of questions, these are the only three types of variations that you can get. How to value an FRA and all right now before maturity, all of that is not covered in L1. All of that we study in level 2. For now, from a CFA level 1 perspective, these are the only three types of understanding that you need to have about a FRA, on how to price the FRA, whether you should buy the FRA or sell the FRA, and how to calculate the fixed rate leg of the FRA. So I hope you understood FRA in this video, and if you liked the video, please do subscribe to our channel so that we can keep on making more such content for you guys, and I'll see you in the next video.